accountability so that nobody comes into the office or factory floor or store sick, fever, aches and pains, etc. For those folks who are in a higher risk.
Welcome to the conferencing center. At any time during this message, please enter your participant passcode followed by the pound sign.
So employers should take that into account and should make extra accommodations as necessary in order to make sure that folks can continue to
If
work.
you are the leader, please press the star key now.
There should be absolutely no discrimination, and we are going to have our eye on that, and we're in close touch with the Attorney General. This is a time for the whole country as we go forward.
Your passcode has been confirmed. If you need technical assistance during your call, press star 0. After the tone, please state your name followed by the pound sign.
Bill Bartholomew.
Thank you. There are 0 parties in conference, including you. The leader has not activated this conference. Please stand by until your call begins.
All right, good afternoon, Rhode Island, for what might be the last time here doing this follow-up Q&A. A pleasure to have you on board on this Saturday afternoon, day one of the reopening phase 1 here. I was just down in Newport, and you know what?
The conference leader.
Kind of calm. And now it certainly doesn't hurt that it's frigid, windy, and, not exactly summertime out there today.
Please
Nonetheless,
hold for the
not a
conference
big
leader.
crowd. Most people had masks on. It didn't seem like what I was expecting, which was, kind of a minor disaster of sorts. Look, the governor has made it clear they're moving
Please
forward.
hold for the conference
And,
leader.
I asked her yesterday, is there anything that you might look at this weekend that might influence your decision differently? In other words, you might revoke the maneuver to go to
hold for
phase
the
1. It
conference
doesn't
leader.
seem like that's the case. It seems like no matter what, we're going to plow forward here. Now, a lot of you have been writing in the comments. You've been writing to me, Bill at ripodcast.com, or in our
for the
private
conference
conversations
leader.
expressing extreme concern for moving forward at the pace we are. And look, I don't blame you at all. I think that we are definitely in an aggressive, risk-taking mode here. There's no doubt about it.
Please hold for the
The
conference
question
leader.
remains, is this a risk that will pay off in terms of reviving Rhode Island's economy at some level faster than our neighboring states,
hold
or does
for the
this set
conference
us up
leader.
for a situation where we're going to have to regress into some kind of lockdown mode? Now, there's also plenty of you, especially, and I understand if you're in Washington County, if you're
Please hold for the
if you're
conference leader.
in quote unquote South County, if you're on Block Island, even in parts of Newport, right? Newport County, Bristol County. Okay, I understand that from your vantage point, testing sites
This
have been
conference
closed,
is in silent mode.
and you're wondering, what do you mean there's concern about moving forward? We should be moving forward faster to reopen the economy. But we've got to remember, this is a small state. We don't have county governments here. Everything is going to be determined on a statewide basis. Here in Providence, in the urban core, okay, in Central Falls, parts of Pawtucket. This is still an extreme situation. And my friend who's a nurse at Rhode Island Hospital saying this is an insidious disease. Don't take your
The
eye off
conference
the
is
ball
now
yet.
in silent
All right,
mode.
here's the governor.
The conference is
And the
now in
coroner.
talk mode.
Dr. Alexander Scott, this is Kim Kalunian. I'm just wondering if you've been tested for COVID-19 as well,
Not yet.
but you plan to be.
For this time, yes.
Thank you.
Hey, what about you, Governor?
No. I haven't been near anyone who's tested positive. I'm keeping my social network very small.
Are there efforts to contain the possibility of infection at the State House? Because, I mean, with the White House now having 2 confirmed cases, I would think that's some concern. This is Michael Billow from Latif.
Yeah, so here at the State House, everybody is screened, myself included. When you walk in, you can't get in the building unless you answer the health question. We have a mask wearing policy, and frankly, great credit goes to our legislature. They're doing the right thing, and they're not here during the crisis. So there's very limited number of people here on any given day. And we've instituted a whole new cleaning protocol. So, that's how we're dealing with it.
Hey, Governor, this is Eli Sherman from Channel 12. I'm just wondering, maybe another couple of weeks before we know exactly what lifting the stay-at-home order will have done in terms of hospitalizations and testing and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But is there something that you're watching in the more immediate term to try and measure whether or not things like that?
I'm sorry, Eli, you just cut out at the end. Is there something I'm watching?
In the immediate term, to measure whether or not things are going south?
Well, we'll look at number of cases every day. That's a leading indicator. If we start to see a jump in percent positive or, a surge in number of cases, outbreaks, like if we start to see, if everybody, goes to the office and then not supposed to, we're going to see outbreaks in offices and such. If we have a series of those, that'd be pretty obvious. And then we're going to be doing enforcement. So we're going to really step up our enforcement. So we'll be out and about watching, are people obeying the new rules? But you're correct in that the most definitive indicator is the lagging indicator, which is hospitalization.
Tara Granahan, if I could.
Go ahead, Tara.
If Dr. McDonald was around people who tested positive, and thankfully he's negative, but that's in the surroundings, I would think, of Dr. Nicole, and then you guys are together every day, should you not be testing just to make sure?
We would want to base it first. As the governor said, she has not needed to be tested because she hasn't been around anyone who's tested positive. So the key would be to follow the approach in terms of exposure. So we have said anyone who has been in our building and affiliated with the areas involved should be tested. And I have been working from home primarily, so the risk for me has been low, or working remotely. I do want to add to Kim's question who had asked that I've been tested. I had not been tested for this evaluation as of yet, but do plan to, because I have gone into the building at least once within this last week. But I had been tested several weeks ago because of an exposure at that time. So I just wanted to clarify that answer.
Governor,
And the governor's you've never been tested at all?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Governor
Okay.
Bill Bartholomew, I'm wondering about this protest that's scheduled for Monday. Last time, there was no enforcement really. I wonder if you have any plans to do anything differently. I understand it's a car protest, but this time there are members of the media that are pushing it. It seems like it's going to reach more people. What's your message to anyone that plans on turning up on Monday at the State House to protest your guidance?
I would say two things. First, I would say I respect your opinion, and these are difficult decisions I'm making. It's not like I want to keep people out of work. I feel it's the best of two bad options, and I'm certain it's the right thing to do in light of everything. Secondly, I would say, if you want to protest, stay in your car. Protest, honk your horn, make your voices heard, but don't violate social distancing. And thirdly, I trust Colonel Manny implicitly and totally. He and his troopers will be out there, and if they feel, I'll trust them. They'll de-escalate the situation, but they're on guard, and they will enforce the law as they see fit.
But have you had any conversations that since the last protest? And I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to keep the question
go
going.
ahead.
Have you had any conversations with Colonel Manny since the last protest that there may be a different approach to that enforcement this go around?
I have not talked to him about it. I probably will between now and Monday. But again, that's his area, and he will have to balance keeping peace and de-escalating tension with making sure that the social distancing rules and mask wearing rules are enforced.
Governor, I'm struck by the there are good trends on hospitalizations and cases, but the deaths, we went from 300 to 400 in less than a week by my math, which is the first time that's happened. Do we have any, this could also be Dr. Alexander Scott, why, death, I know they're a lagging indicator, but why they'd be picking up even as we see some positive trends on hospitalizations and cases?
We are definitely identifying more cases because of the aggressive testing and assessment that we've been doing, particularly in our congregate settings. So that then leads to association of COVID-19 with the deaths that are unfortunately happening. And that may be a contributing factor to why we are seeing these numbers, particularly in that higher risk population.
Director of Health,
this is Ryan Belmore.
Follow up on my question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I want to follow up with Dr. Scott. I'm just curious. So, Massachusetts, the average age is 82, but we don't know what the average age is in Rhode Island for all the people that have died.
I can get you the actual average. I was, serving to give you even more information than that by reading through the percentages that I shared. But we can calculate the actual average, and Joseph can get it to you.
It was just, I want to clarify, it was my understanding, and you were giving percentages, but I thought that was just for that one day. But on Wednesday, I thought it was through the Massachusetts Department of Health, but they released the average age of 82 for all of the people that have died, not just on one day.
Yep.
So that's the number that I was looking for.
Yep. The number that I gave was for an N of 341 fatalities.
Okay.
So a larger percentage.
Okay.
If you do release the mean age at death, I would be interested in the median age at death as well, if that's easily produced.
Joseph will get you guys that later today.
Thank you.
Director of Health, Ryan Belmore here. I have a question. We have 2 supermarkets here in Newport, which each have had at least one employee test positive at each. What does contact tracing look like for supermarkets? We have a lot of residents and customers worried. And also, what does testing look for the employees at those businesses?
Yes, for each entity, it may vary slightly, but the big picture in terms of the contact tracing component is identifying contacts who have been closer than 6 feet distant for 10 minutes or longer. So that's what's described as prolonged direct contact. That tends not to happen as much with customers in a store, but we do walk through that with employees to help get that understanding and reach out to those who are considered contacts. From the testing standpoint, with the testing strategy that the governor has shared and I have relayed, we are continuing to take a more targeted approach, particularly with our outbreak response, similar to what has been described with congregate settings where we have a couple of cases and we can put a team in to do more extensive testing and better understand the landscape. We want to do that in work settings as well, and it's similar to what I described that we did at the Rhode Island Department of Health. So those are the high-level approaches, and then there will be nuances based on the individualized information we obtain.
Governor, can I ask a question about the DLT? With the there's a tremendous amount of people still writing and calling in and asking for help, and I can only speak for myself. But you try to direct them to the right phone number or the right email address, and there's still an awful lot of it out there. Has there been any streamlining? Has there been any beefing up of moving state workers around, or what's changed at all to try to get all these unemployment claims in?
Yeah, there has. We've changed the technology and also the workflow and added more people. The volume is, I mean, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. The systems aren't built for this kind of volume. I feel sorry that we can't move faster. Comparatively, we're doing a much better job than Massachusetts, for example, and most states. But Brett, maybe give some details.
Yeah, I would just add that we have reassigned state workers. We have an additional overflow call center in place, and then we implemented a brand new back-end technology system specifically for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, the PUA, that has enabled it to run smoothly. For the average claimant, it's all hinged on whether or not there's an exception to your file or not. If you complete everything accurately without any flags, you're still paying within 10 to 12 days. However, if there's a Social Security number that's off, an employer that's off, an income amount that's off, that then gets handed to a live person, a state worker, who has to make a phone call, and that is almost every time where the delay comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Director Smiley, I've gotten questions from a few
veteran
people that have wondering about incentives for installing PPE-esque, like whether it's a glass shield in stores, small businesses here in Rhode Island that are doing COVID preventative work. Is there any incentive for them, whether it's a grant or anything of that nature that you're aware of?
Well, I'll answer that as the gov. We're working on it. We're trying. That's exactly the sort of thing that the Emergency COVID Relief Fund was intended to help governors do. So I'm hoping to have more to announce, I don't know, in a week or so. I know we need to get immediate relief to small businesses and folks who are unemployed. So just give me another week.
Of course.
Couple minutes left.
How has the testing at the Stop and Shop locations been going throughout the state?
It has been going well overall. We are working closely with Eastside Clinical Lab, who provides the results and remain available to people who have questions. And it's really the first step in that third approach for a comprehensive testing strategy to help us understand what spread of disease or just COVID-19 looks like in Rhode Island, particularly throughout the population that may or may not have symptoms.
Have you been seeing a lot of people get testing there compared to other sites that are already set up, like the CVS Rapid site?
Well, the approach for this is different because people were randomly selected and reached out to with the offer to get tested, as opposed to those other sites that you mentioned where we are strongly encouraging people and their providers to send persons who have symptoms to be tested. As soon as any symptoms occur or a question of symptoms, we want people going to the current swabbing sites. The Stop and Shop component is a very different approach. This is more so for just the population level understanding of how COVID-19 works, not focused on people who we want to get the immediate care needed because of symptoms.
Doctor, what's the percentage of people who are offered the testing who have accepted it for that sample?
We're still collecting that data, but we'll make note of that and be able to share it when we have it.
Can you give us an update on the deaths in terms of how many of them happened in nursing homes, and can you give us any update on the veterans home, please?
The most accurate nursing home numbers we've now been posting weekly as the weekly data are cleaned and validated. So any daily
I meant today's death, Director, sorry.
What'd you say?
Today's death.
I understand. The daily numbers that I provide should be considered a provisional snapshot. So of the 19 fatalities that were announced today, 17 were associated with long-term care facilities. We approximately have 320 fatalities total associated with long-term care facilities or assisted living facilities, and there have been between 5 and 10 fatalities associated with other congregate care settings. And that's also in the context of what I shared previously about our overall mortality rate as a state.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you Monday.
Yeah, we will. We'll see you in person on Monday. Apparently, we're going to be back in, the location has not been formally announced. I'm waiting for an email. I do know where they're looking at. I've been asked not, and anyone else who's been kind of given a heads up has been asked not to share that information yet. It'll be interesting. I think they're going to be able to accommodate the broad sector, media sector, the independents and the mainstream outlets. So look, they're moving ahead. Phase 2, probably 2 weeks, restaurants opening with outdoor seating. And, it doesn't seem like there's any data that is going to slow this process down. That's been made pretty well clear. Also, despite the fact that other states are moving in a county by county or on a regional basis with their reopening plans, Rhode Island's not going to do that. There's no county governments. Again, you're not going to set up state police checkpoints on the highway where where you see the sign, all out-of-state plates must pull over. Now you see a new sign, all Providence County residents must stop at next checkpoint and get your temperature checked or whatever. That's not happening. So we're going to have to coordinate and cooperate on a statewide basis here. That's pretty clear. And you know what? We'll see what happens. There's really nothing else to it at this point. My suggestion is to take it slow, especially if you're a vulnerable or susceptible member of the population. And really for all of us, just, ease into this thing, because the last thing we need, number one, is a significant outbreak. And number two, to have to move backwards, right? There's probably no outcome that could be worse than significant increase in deaths and severe cases in the hospital that will then result in more restrictions than perhaps we have even experienced in the last few months. Because, by the way, it could have gone even further, you know what I mean, than what we have experienced. There are steps in the HEPCON guidelines, which is sort of like DEFCON, our defense levels that we go to here in the United States, if we're under attack and so on and so forth. There's a similar guideline called HEPCON, and we never necessarily got to HEPCON Delta, in which state borders are closed. You're really under essentially martial law. So we never got there. But I'm fearful that we could move there if this thing gets out of control again. So let's hope for the best. Now, on Monday, in-person press conferences, Bob asked an excellent question, which I was hoping to get in. Is this the final follow-up call? I bet it is. I bet there won't be a follow-up call. Tomorrow, the governor is going to just air a pre-recorded Mother's Day message. So, folks, this might be it. This might be a wrap for our little gathering here. I'll still be broadcasting on Facebook from the perspective of being in person, the press conferences, but our little gathering here with the Q&A, it might be coming to an end. Now, I don't know that for sure. And again, we're supposed to get the information later today, and the governor's press secretary is usually pretty good about that. And no, yes. Eric writes, no. Keep the post game show going. Maybe I can get like a sportscaster's headset with like the drop down mic, and we can do it right out in front of the wherever location is happening. Yes, here it is, Tom Buchanan and Lisa. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Yep, the Gatsby Project. They're the ones who are organizing it. Look at that, $100 prize, $100 gift prize. So I wonder if that's a gift card to a business within the Gatsby network for the best decorated vehicle at the parade on Monday. And look, folks, I mean, First Amendment all day, every day. Especially if you have an opinion that you want to express, of course, go for it. I'm just not sure these protests are opinion driven. The last one was, it didn't seem like it had anything to do with reopening the economy. It just seemed like broad anger. And I wonder, I'm pretty confident that's what we're going to experience with this car protest. Now, the funny thing is, and I'll just kind of drop a hint here, they're organizing this car protest outside the State House, and the press conference, from everything I can tell, is not going to be at the State House. So that'll be interesting to see how that impacts anything. And maybe that's why the governor was kind of lightheartedly saying, hey, I understand. Look, if you're out of work, you should be concerned, and there are a lot of channels to direct your frustration. To me, these random protests aren't reaching anybody. You'd be better off directing it towards the General Assembly, who aren't in session right now. I mean, I'd be on the phone with your state representative and state senator. Hey, why aren't you in session right now? What are we doing from a financial standpoint, not just PPP and the payroll protection and the unemployment that's going to expire in July, long term? What are we doing to lay the bricks for rebuilding Rhode Island? What is that plan, right? That's the plan we should be coming up with, not driving around in circles screaming about, the governor being part of the New World Order or something like that, because that's not what's happening here. There's a lot of other ways they could have done that. We didn't have that, although it seems heavy-handed to some, as I just referenced, it could have gone a lot further had the governor or the president or any other person in authority had wanted to. And thanks so much to everybody for the shout-out. David writes, in theory, if it's returning to person, then questions and follow-up should be broadcast live again. Right, exactly. So the whole press briefing, the media availability will be one operation start to finish, and you should be able to see it live. I think I'll be able to bring my iPhone and put my tripod up and get a live feed here on Facebook, as will all the television and radio stations. Eric John, Bill for Supreme Leader. I don't know about that, but I am feeling good. I got the blue light glasses. So here on the last day of doing this, at least my eyes, which had been feeling horrendous, to be honest with you, from all the screen time, hopefully they'll be a little bit improved. Sam writes, they should be taking a rational and calculated approach for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And anything less than that is inappropriate, right? In my opinion, they are confident that they've got it figured out. Now, is this a Commerce Rhode Island driven situation more so than a health department decision? I asked that last week. The governor said it ultimately comes down to her fielding information and making a decision herself. Now, you've got to remember, the governor has some substantial members of her inner circle who are outside of government. So she has people such Duffy and Shanley, which is an ad agency, some people within there. She has other friends, Michael Bloomberg folks, who are essentially her advisors, and they probably have a significant amount of influence or a significant voice in influencing the governor's decision. And we'll see how that goes. Sam writes again, I'm tempted to decorate my 2001 Honda Accord with giant American flags and get that $100. Now, there we go. Now, that's a counter protest, folks. Get the $100 and argue. Let's see if you can make your vehicle indubitably the best decorated vehicle in the parade, undeniable. You know what I mean? And get that $100. Well, I wonder how that's being judged. I wonder if John DePietro himself will be making that decision, or if he'll be inside the press conference and watching the protest on his phone. I don't know. Yeah, in her judgment and influenced by external interest to some degree. No question about it. This is a a situation where she's definitely leaning on her round table, so to speak. And I always reference it's 3:41 in the morning, and there's a group text message going around asking for, what should I, and the governor writes, what should I do in X situation? Who's on that text message, right? Who gets that message? Who's part of that conversation? Certainly not Lieutenant Governor McKee, right? I asked her yesterday what her conversations with Speaker Mattiello have been like. She said they've been limited, if anything. So that's how it is. The latest today, phase one. Here we are, looking out the window. I don't see pandemonium out here in Elmwood, but let me know if you see anything out there of interest. Email me, bill@ripodcast.com. Tomorrow, Mother's Day message. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. My mom, who I don't think she's on here right now, she sometimes listens in from Florida, an expat, trying to decide, hey, can we come back to the Ocean State? Can we come back up north? Tom writes, I can Venmo some money to help with decorating. I don't even know who the lieutenant governor is. Now, that is interesting because it's Dan McKee, who was duly elected, and he's in his second term. And what's fascinating is I had pondered a couple of weeks ago, if you did a poll, what would it be? What would the average person think that Brett Smiley, who was standing there at every press conference to the left of the governor and says about 2 to 5 sentences per month, do most people believe he is the lieutenant governor? If you did a random poll, let's say, the same 5,000 people they're sending the testing invitations to also still get, they get a questionnaire. Okay, number one, who's the lieutenant governor? And they show you a picture. I think most people would choose Brett Smiley. Now, part of that's because the lieutenant governor is who would stand in as governor should there be a situation where the governor can't serve, whether she gets sick or something else. So the separation is there. But the lieutenant governor insists that they don't have conversations. And he is certainly not a part of that inner circle in the Raimondo administration. So fascinating stuff there. I'm just trying to rehear it. Yeah, you know what? It's not worth going out, Sam, and decorating your vehicle. That is for sure. And look, I had a bad experience. I went down to the last protest that these folks ran a couple of weeks ago. Remember the megaphone guy? Guy was wearing militia uniform and like kind of like a Coheed and Cambria type of costume. You know what I mean? Like he was in like an early 90s new metal band type situation. Maybe more like Stained or Limp Bizkit, that era. He was kind of dressed in that format, and he got into my face with the toy megaphone. You may remember that footage. They're the folks who are organizing this, And again, First Amendment all day, every day, do what you'd like. But, what happened last time didn't accomplish anything other than make a group of people look kind of silly. This time, John DePietro is involved. He's pushing it. You asked McKee on Facebook. Richard writes, I asked McKee on Facebook if he was still lieutenant governor or if Smiley was, right? Brett Smiley is the director of administration. Now, he's widely considered to be running for, he is almost certainly going to be running for mayor of Providence, and he's widely considered to be a favorite there. So there's no question that his appearance at each of these daily briefings is to fuel his name recognition and just his general recognition amongst Rhode Islanders, right? I mean, what an opportunity for someone to get in front of tens of thousands of people who are likely to be the same folks that are going to vote. Now, again, I don't want to accuse or suggest that it's a devious activity. It's just a strategy. But as you know, Brett Smiley, the director of administration, he really doesn't have much to say at these press conferences. As Richard describes him, the human bobblehead. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Just there, kind of on camera, not a whole lot of action. So we'll see again when we get back into the in-person briefings. Will we see more characters? Will the Elorza, there seems to be a bit of a rift between Mayor Elorza and Governor Raimondo. Remember going back to Mayor Elorza about 2 months ago called a press conference to close down the mall, announcing that he was going to close down the Providence Place Mall. And in fact, and then the governor basically requested him to cancel that press conference so they could appear together and they could sort of co-announce things, right? So there is an effort being made to consolidate messaging within the governor's office. There's no question about that. And Richard writes again on Brett Smiley, is it really doing anything for him? You're right. You don't see his name out there. I question how many people inside Providence are watching these briefings every day. Television is generally consumed in the suburbs, right? You look at the commercials, car sales, it's a suburban product. And because he's not saying anything, social media and radio, of course, doesn't really, do much for him in that context. So I also agree, Richard. I'm not sure that he's exploding. But you're right, that face name recognition, Tom writes, that can make a huge difference for uninformed voters. You go, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. He was part of the recovery team. So it's interesting. Very, very interesting stuff here, the strategy. And we'll see what changes. Again, expecting, I don't know when we're going to get it. Any moment now, I'm hoping to get the information about where the pressers will be starting Monday. I'll bring those to you live. Everybody have a great Mother's Day, number one. As much as you can here in lockdown, phase 1 lockdown. Enjoy the weekend. It's a nice enough day. I'm gonna put my mask on and go for a walk and in the park. I'll do my part, bring the mask, and I look forward to speaking with all of you. Not tomorrow, but on Monday. Bob writes, let me see if I can get this in here. Will Margie O'Brien control the question? No, I don't think so. I think we'll be back to the old governor type situation, and she'll probably, Jen Bogdan, who's the governor's press secretary, will ultimately call on reporters one by one. But then again, I don't know that. They may say, you know what, this is kind of nice. Let's get it organized and let's have Margie O'Brien, who's done a good job. She, of course, is of Capitol TV. Essentially, they broadcast what's going on in the General Assembly. So she's done a good job. She's the one who asked the questions that we submit via this online portal. So I'm looking forward to never typing another question into there again, trying to race against Ian Donis and Ted Nesi to get a question in before them. I think it's time to move back to in-person pressers, and we'll get more information about that as soon as it comes in. All right. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much to everybody for choosing Bartholomewtown for your information source as we navigate COVID-19 together.